Hey guys, let's get straight to the point. The Zhiyun Crane M3 and the Sony A7IV is currently the most powerful compact filming setup that we have in our studio. It is a full-frame setup that you can do professional jobs with while staying so compact that I can fit everything in a sling bag. That is almost like a dream to us being able to carry so little to film. The Crane M3 is definitely powerful enough to stabilize a full-frame Sony camera because it is pretty much the same size as an APS-C camera from other brands. We are using the A7IV with a base plate, no cage, and prime lenses like a 50mm f1.8 or a 35mm f1.8. This is definitely good enough for 95% of our projects. The stabilization and torque of the motors are absolutely amazing with this setup. We always keep the speed of our gimbal to slow because we don't want any fast and unnatural movements. We also kept the deadband to low because we found that with a heavier setup like the A7IV, the response time when you pan the gimbal is kind of too slow. A low deadband will make the gimbal more responsive. I would recommend keeping all the in-camera stabilization on, including the active steady shot, because that will eliminate the up and down bounces caused by footstep that most consumer level gimbals cannot stabilize. When you walk, you will create an up and down movement and you will only see it when you watch the footage on a bigger screen. So if you don't want to use any warp stabilization in post, keep all the stabilizations on your camera turned on. We think this is much more natural compared to warp stabilization. The only thing you need to be careful of is to not to do super sudden change of direction because the in-camera stabilization will bounce the sensor around, and those bounces are very unnatural as well. When it comes to balancing the Crane M3 with a Sony full-frame camera, it is very easy just like any other gimbals. It is even easier because the whole setup is so light that it doesn't require too much energy fiddling with the balance of the gimbal compared to a bigger setup like our DJI RS2 and the BMP-CC 4K. The motor strength of the Crane M3 is definitely powerful enough to stabilize and provide smooth movements with the Sony A7IV, so the battery life will just be almost the same as using it with a smaller camera. As long as you can balance the setup properly and not stressing the motors, you will get good battery life, just like any other gimbals. Since the Crane M3 has a 1/4 mounting point on the handle, you can mount pretty much anything to it like lights, microphone, monitor, or what we have, our phone as a monitor. Yes, we're super happy that we can use our phone with the Monitor Plus app to fully control and monitor our Sony A7IV wirelessly. With this setup, we can change the settings of our camera, start and stop recording, monitor the exposure with zero cable attached to the camera. That is absolutely game-changing. Trust me, the less cables you have to fiddle with on your setup, the easier for you to film on set. Like a lot easier. The Crane M3 does come with a USB-C cable that you can use to connect to your Sony camera to start and stop recording, but I don't even need it at all if I am using the phone app, especially when the Crane M3 still cannot control the Sony A7IV during the time of making this video. Hopefully a future firmware update will solve this issue, but I have the app so it's okay. The only two downsides of using the Monitor Plus app to control the A7IV is that the footage has a slight delay and you cannot play back the footage on the phone. You will have to watch the playback on the tiny camera screen. But all the extra features you get with the app are definitely much more important to us. We'll link our Monitor Plus app review video in the description below if you want to check it out. As we mentioned in our Crane M3 review video, this gimbal is a little top-heavy when you have a camera attached. This is even heavier with a full-frame A7IV, but attaching our phone on the handle makes it better balanced, which is awesome. Plus, you don't need to bring an external monitor if you don't want to, because most likely you will have your phone around. The overall weight of this setup, including the phone or an external monitor, is still much lighter than our DJI RS2 and BMP-CC 4K. This is very important when you have to film for hours and carry the setup to different locations. Trust me, every pound or gram makes a huge difference. With this setup, I don't get tired that easily, which is awesome. Yes, forget about using big zoom lenses like the 24-70 f2.8 or the 70-200 f2.8. They won't balance on the Crane M3. You will need a bigger gimbal like the DJI RS2 or RSC2. Of course, you will have to use smaller lenses like primes or the new Sony zoom lenses because of the small Crane M3 gimbal size. But using small lenses doesn't mean you cannot produce high quality images. I was having the same worry that many people have working as a videographer. The smaller the setup we bring on set, the less professional we seem to the clients. Yes, that is definitely a thing when you show up on set. Clients who are not into camera gear will usually be more impressed if you bring a huge camera setup to set, because they might not understand how powerful smaller mirrorless cameras are these days, and it is totally understandable for them to worry about the final image quality. That is kind of the same for many other jobs. Let's say if you're a makeup artist who carries 20 different brushes compared to someone who carries 2 brushes. You can't really assume who can do a better job based on how many tools they have because they are pretty much unrelated. One thing you can do to ensure that your clients are not going to worry about the size of your setup is to show them previous work or projects that you filmed with the same setup. That way, the client can feel more confident with what you brought to the set, and it will also allow the client to tell you what kind of style they are looking for while going through your previous work. The second thing you can do is to use an external monitor, or like us, use a phone to show your clients how nice the image quality is even when the setup is small. That way they will not be worried and they don't have to stare at the tiny screen behind the camera as well. One thing I highly recommend doing is to use a monitor or app that allows you to apply your LUTs on top of the log image coming out of the camera, even if it is just a basic Rec. 709 conversion. So you and your clients are not looking at a washed out image, let's say when you are filming in S-Log3. To be honest with you, it is not easy to convince clients when you bring a tiny setup on set, but you will just need to be confident and let your work speak for itself. I will bring this setup to my next project and keep you guys updated. I definitely value a setup that is lighter and easier for me to film instead of impressing the clients with a heavy setup that I don't even want to use. That's it. This is currently our favorite lightweight yet super powerful setup that we use for our projects. We're so happy that technology nowadays allows us to be creative without having to carry big equipment around, so there's less excuses for us to not to be creative. Let us know what you think in the comment section below. What is your current setup? Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.